So recently I've been watching videos showing comparisons between the USA and Britain, the country I'm from. Really enjoying them all so far and really just enjoying learning about the USA. And I've reacted to a few videos from this creator, love his works. I'll put a link to his video in the description. Go follow him, go subscribe to his channel. This one is one he made, it's called 6 Happily Surprising Things About Living in America. So of course, I like to just look at positive things, look at good things, and yeah, I want to see what a British guy is happy with living in America. And yeah, you can tell me what you think about these.
Hello, I'm Lawrence and I'm on a quest to uncover all of the memos that Britain and America lost in the pond, and one of those memos pertains to the things that surprise us. Specifically, for me, the things that happily surprise me about living in the United States. Now, this might seem like a strange video to do at this time while many of us are trapped in our quarantine bunkers, but once we all emerge, I'm excited to start enjoying many of these things very, very soon, even though I didn't get to for the first 26 years of my life. America, today I salute you. Here are 6 happily surprising things about living in the United States. I suppose sometimes, it's the little things in life, or should I say, the litter things in life that please people. And, growing up in a country that is a wasteland, quite frankly, I'm joking, Britain's not that bad. But we do have a tendency just to, throw litter around. And sometimes now, I've been hearing back in Britain, since I've left, we've had this problem with fly tipping, and that's where, people are dumping their trash. But even minus that, I just got this general sense that Britain was just a bit more littery than America. In America, everywhere's super clean. That's one of the great things about it. You can enjoy the oxygen around you, knowing that it hasn't touched a chewing gum wrapper. This is usually the case, and I'm taking the examples of the places I've lived. This is about 4 different cities at this point, and in each and every one of them, you have very green, very well-kept gardens, very clear sidewalks, although in some cases that could be because nobody used them. But it's really refreshing to go to the beach here in Chicago and not find discarded chippy wrappers or crushed Coca-Cola cans or used condoms. Americans, on the whole, are just better about not littering, and I know that sounds like a generalization of the wild variety, and it makes me sound like a crotchety old man telling people to get off his yard, but at least my yard is clean. I mean, most in Britain are, to be fair. It's mostly the streets, and I should know, I grew up on the mean streets of Grimsby. It was actually a nice area, but sometimes the streets would still be littered with caviar containers.
First of all, I didn't realise they had beaches in Chicago. Are they nice beaches? Is there beaches in any other surprising places in America? But yeah, I really like that. I've not been to America, I've not been to the USA, so it's nice to know that the place is clean. I think it shows that American people are proud of their country. Of course, that's something I know, but just obviously very responsible people. As he compared to UK, being from the UK, I've definitely seen a lot of mess on the streets. I go back to my home city, Glasgow, and every year I go back, I live in Malaysia, I lived in Asia for the last over a decade. Every year I go back, it seems to get messier and messier. There's always strikes with the bin men, the garbage men. There's just a lack of civil respect, if you want to say something like that. People just throw rubbish everywhere, and it's really sad to know that it's not like that in America. I really appreciate that. And especially he's lived in 4 different places, so it's not just like one place. He's got experience in proof from different places that that's the case. Tell me, if you're from the USA, is it the same where you're from? Is it very clean? Is there any places you've been that people just leave litter lying about everywhere? Soccer
this
fields,
one was
okay.
hugely surprising, especially as a fan of football, or as they say in the rest of the English-speaking world, soccer, because I'd always sort of understood America to not be truly interested in soccer or football, and in many respects this is still true, at least when things are normal and sport is still happening. America still prioritizes NFL, basketball, hockey, and what's the other one, baseball, above all other sports. And so it was just really surprising to this fresh-faced Brit who came equipped with a soccer ball to find that there were soccer fields aplenty. They were everywhere, even in Anderson, Indiana, right, which is the place that I've lived that had the lowest population. but off the top of my head, I can already think of about 5 soccer fields in that city alone. They're very, very widespread, at least in the eastern portion of the United States. I can't speak for the sort of the plains and the Rockies, because can you imagine having soccer fields high up in the mountains? It might happen. If you live in those areas, let me know in the comments below. But I think one of the chief reasons that there are just so many of them is that they're very popular with school-age people. And of course, it is one of the most popular sports in the United States played by women. You've just got to look at the overwhelming success of the US women's national team, who've won at this point about 2.5 million World Cups. England, of course, still waiting on theirs. And speaking of waiting, that brings us on to this.
Yeah, so that's interesting. As a soccer fan, as a football fan, I love to hear that there's football pitches everywhere in America. That makes me proud, makes me happy to know. And I guess it reflects in the USA, the US national team. Like, the US men's national team are producing so many great young players, so many performing so well in Europe at the moment. Definitely there's a lot to be positive and confident about with the US men's national team. As I said, it's good to see the younger generation taking it up. Tell me if that's the case where you're from. Are there a lot of soccer fields? Can you see it growing in popularity? And yeah, obviously we already know about the success of the women's team just for a long time. Very, just ongoing, just success for them.
America is known as the land of the free, and I always thought that that was quite weird because, I always considered Britain to be quite free, as in we had freedoms, but then I started to think, well, maybe it comes down to the little things, right? Something I noticed, of course, and I've talked about on this channel, is you can get free refills in any kind of restaurant on your sodas. And the same is true of entering public toilets, except you don't drink the contents. Let's be clear about that. What I'm saying is, in Britain, sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes, public toilets will charge you an entry fee in order to use it. And I can understand why they do this. It's partly for the upkeep of said public toilets. But it's a big problem when you really need to go. Nobody wants to find themselves in a race to find their change versus a race to change their knickers. In America, though I'm sure there are some quirky exceptions somewhere, you never have to worry about that. You just have to worry that people can see you through the crack.
Yeah, what do you think about that? Do you think it's madness that people have to pay to use the toilet? And what you said, it's usually for the upkeep. I've been to a lot of toilets that you have to pay for in Glasgow, in Scotland, in the UK. They are an absolute disgrace, man. Puddles of water everywhere. They're disgusting. Not only do you feel bad having to pay, but you're just standing there why have I paid for this? But the thing as well that is interesting about that is obviously it seems that most countries are moving towards a cashless environment for spending money. So all these toilets you have to pay for in the UK usually take small change. Who carries small change anymore, man?
I feel like I've mentioned window screens a lot in my videos, but not really in the context of how they've brought me a lot of joy. And that might sound really strange, right? But in England, we never had them. And we also never had air conditioning. So you find yourself in this strange situation, particularly on a warm summer's day, of having to open the window just to get some fresh air in. But of course, with that comes some other things. Things like, mosquitoes, which, to be fair, in Britain aren't anywhere near as bad as they are in the American Midwest. Or Big Daddy Longlegs, or, bees. Bees can get in the house, and who wants that? Now, bees and wasps and things like that are probably the most dangerous things that might get into your house in Britain. So it's not really a huge concern, but it can be an irritation. And it's an irritation that's largely alleviated in the United States by the existence of these window screens. I'm not saying that insects don't get in at all. I mean, I've seen enough ant colonizations in my kitchen to know that that's not true. But I do not remember the last time I encountered a wasp, a bee, or a mosquito inside my apartment. It just doesn't really happen. But the big revelation that is window screens doesn't just stop bugs from getting in, it also stops a certain somebody from getting out, and I'm not talking about my wife. She uses the door. Now in Britain, people might be a little less concerned about this because, there's more of an outdoor cat culture there. But my cat, much like the cats of many people in the United States, is very decidedly an indoor cat. And if I want to open the window, as I did today, right, there are occasions during spring and autumn when, it's not hot enough for the air conditioning unit and it's not cold enough for the heating, anything, you want to crack a window open, right? And if that were the case in Britain on a lower floor or even the second floor, your cat's gone. And to me, that would be bad because, you know, recently I did have a dream that we lost him at the beach. And I know that curiosity isn't going to kill my cat, but a Prius would. Window screens save lives. Now, once we get the all clear to start en masse leaving our apartments, whether that is by the door or the window, then there's one aspect of America I will never take for granted again, and it's this.
Yeah, so I've actually never been in a house that's had screens over the window, so I don't even really know. I've only seen photographs and videos showing that. Is it that good to have? Is it a big benefit not having to like have things fly in your house? What's the craziest thing that's ever flew in your house? But with those screens, are they like solidly stuck in, or can you like slide them out so you can have the best of both worlds? Maybe you can like move it over, have that wide open one to get like maybe like more fresh air in and things like that as well. Again, I've got no experience with that, with those
Don't get me wrong,
those things
we have
the
a
window.
fantastic national park system in the United Kingdom, and one, you know, I wished I'd experienced more while I lived there. And the same thing is happening right now as I live in America. I feel like I haven't seen enough of the national parks, or even sort of state parks or state forests and things of that nature. Now, I have experienced one or two, you know, Muir Woods near San Francisco, but I want to see the big ones, you know. I've sold out at this point. I want to do Yellowstone National Park, I want to do Yosemite, I want to do Badlands, all of them basically in a week. Can we make that happen?
No,
Why not?
because combined they're larger than Britain.
Right. The national park system is amazing, protecting some of the most unbelievable natural settings I've ever experienced or will experience, because, you know, I want to enter the Grand Canyon. That's not a euphemism. So I've already said to the wife, when we get out of this, we're cancelling the Paris trip. Even though she's always wanted to do it, so that's a little harsh. We're just going to go out west, you know, pack up our tents and grow mustaches like Teddy Roosevelt. That's me, not the wife. Now, those of you that are new to this channel might not know that I used to do travel videos back in the day. And today, at the top of Ensign Peak, a wasp stung me. But then that, combined with having to work a day job, just got a little challenging. So I put it on hold, but I think now that I'm YouTubing full time, I might start it up again. I don't mean tomorrow, I mean when we've got the all clearance to go and do this sort of thing.
Yeah, so the national parks of the USA is definitely something I want to learn more about. I've seen some about them on the beautiful places in America, beautiful places in the USA video, and they look stunning. I already know a little bit about them, but those are sort of bucket list places. Like the natural beauty, the landscapes, the wildlife is so unique. Tell me if you're from America, like, have you been to many of them? Have you been to any of them? Sometimes when you live in a country, you don't really think to go and explore because you know they're always going to be there, so you just never really get around to visiting them. Tell me if you've been to them, what's your favourite one and why? What one would you recommend someone who's not been to the USA to visit, and why would you recommend it?
This one might be the biggest one of all, hence why I saved it to last, because after all, what is a country without its people? In America's case, it's one big land of unregulated national parks. And I think this one is on the mind because, well, I haven't seen any people except the 1.5 that I live with. And the good thing, I think, that was surprising anyway about Americans and American people is just how nice most of you are. That's if you're not talking about politics or religion or PB&J sandwiches. Of course, there are wild exceptions, and I do mean wild, in any country, and I've certainly seen them here on occasion too, but they are the exception that proves the rule. Unlikely as it seems, I just have to look at the comments section beneath my videos. I know, sounds like a mistake, never do that, but mostly it's Americans who comment, and for the most part, they're all really nice. You're all really nice, right? Most of you. I mean, I ignore the ones that aren't. I have a motto, focus on the flowers, not the weeds. And maybe this is a bad example. A good example would be in real life. Americans are very welcoming, you know, sometimes too welcoming. I've been invited to ranches by people I've never met. It's weird, but it happens. And I think it's just sort of bred into people to be hospitable. There's a lot of hospitality. You often hear of Hoosier hospitality, where I lived in Indiana. You hear of Southern hospitality, an appreciation for other people that goes missing on Twitter. But for the most part, you don't have those kind of interactions in real life, or at least that's been my experience of it. The interactions you have, I think, are mostly very nice. I think of going into shops. I think of going into restaurants. And I know that it's part of their job to treat the customer well. It can be split into two camps. Either you get that really sort of over-the-top cheeriness because they want a higher tip, or it feels very genuine, specifically when you're in a shop and you just strike up a conversation with somebody. It's much easier to do, I think, than perhaps in Britain. We're a little more guarded, I think, about certain things like that. Wild generalization again, and of course I'm not saying that Americans are better than British people, but I think it's worth mentioning, because if you're coming here and you expect everybody to fall into sort of one of 5 categories, right? Either a seedy boss type from an 80s Wall Street movie, a stoner kid, a surfer dude, they're one and the same, all of the characters from Friends, or Norman Bates from Psycho, then you're going to be disappointed or happily surprised, as I was. That's it for this episode. Thank you for joining me. Let me know.
Very good, yeah. So, I mean, I can only echo the sentiments there with regards to the comments. I always get such nice comments, and really shows, yeah, like American people are just very nice, welcoming, respectful people, and that kind of annoys me. Being from the UK, like our exposure to America recently in the last couple of years is it's always political. It's always shown the divide between Americans and shown like people arguing, and it's all this back and forth. But actually, deep down, when you just look at people in America as just the general population, the normal people, everybody's super friendly, super good, super nice, and yeah, that's one thing that makes me want to visit America, is just to like be there and experience going to restaurants and seeing people who are friendly and nice and welcome you to their country. So I love this channel because it really just shows some great things about America, and his point on American people, yeah, I can't agree with more. Like, it's so true. So tell me what you think about this video and the points raised in it, and yeah, tell me if you think there's any other surprising things about living in America. Thanks.